Okay, so here we are on CITR 101.9 FM, and special guest today, Joe Hirabayashi. He is a local guitarist, music teacher, and he's speaking with us today. Hello, Joe.
Hi, how's it going?
Very good. Actually, I should say multi-instrumentalist, really. Joe comes from quite a creative family. He's been involved in a number of projects in the city, including his band's Aunts and Uncles, SSRIs, which are now currently known as Spring, but also various projects that pop up from time to time, including Spatial Poetics 12, an evening of experimental and collaborative performances by an eclectic lineup of Asian Canadian artists. So Joe is Japanese Canadian?
Yep, that's right.
What can you tell me about your family background? Because I know both of your mother and father are involved in the arts in a pretty deep way.
Yeah, well, I'm born and raised in Vancouver. My dad is American originally, Japanese American, and my grandfather is Japanese American as well. So my Japanese ancestry goes back to my great grandfather Jungo, who I recently have been reading about. And yeah, both my parents. My mom is actually like about 10th generation Canadian or something, or 12th, like very, very far back, and Métis as well. And they both met in Vancouver a long time ago, and are both dancers and choreographers. And they formed a company called Kokoro Dance Theater Society in 1986, which is the year that I was born, and have been basically doing a form of dance called Buto, which I think they're calling post-Buto now, which is a contemporary Japanese form of modern dance. Yeah, they've been a big inspiration as far as being artists, and also being artists who have taken on doing something that isn't particularly the most mainstream, and managed to build an audience within the city and build an audience within Canada, and actually internationally as well. It's cool to be able to, kind of step on my own, and that I'm now being asked to do things like Powell Street, which they have done for many, many, many years, and also this night Spatial Poetics.
And in many ways, your parents, are quite pioneers, and I mean, music as well. Like they're both dancers, but I know you've mentioned that you borrowed a guitar or two off your dad.
Yeah.
I guess a very clear, direct line there from what you're doing now with your life there. Yeah, with music. I'm gonna mention one more thing. I do know in passing that your father has been honoured at a certain ceremony where a certain very well-known singer-songwriter was also part of the bill. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, actually, that was my grandfather. Was honoured with the Congressional Medal of Freedom Award last year, posthumously. So he's actually passed away, and that was for basically he opposed Japanese internment during the 1940s, during the Second World War, on the basis that it was unconstitutional and that they were without trial or without any sort of proper court proceedings were incarcerating Americans, Japanese Americans, but also Americans. And so, yeah, that's actually, he has a book out that I just finished reading that documents basically that whole fiasco that he had to deal with when he was roughly around my age, actually a little bit younger. Basically, he lost his court case in the 1940s against the U.S. government on the ground, like basically on ridiculous grounds, and then that in the 1980s, that court case was appealed and the ruling was overturned. And the government finally admitted that actually what they were doing in the 1940s was unconstitutional and was not justifiable. And now Barack Obama gave him a Congressional Medal of Freedom Award along with Bob Dylan and John Glenn. All these other musicians too.
Oh, that's an amazing story, and actually sort of relates a little bit to the Spatial Poetics too. I know part of it, there's a gentleman raising a little bit of awareness about colonial history related to the exile of Chinese Canadian lepers as well. So that's an interesting awareness-raising part of this weekend too. And so yourself personally, with this project, you're working closely with an animator to meld a rock operetta and animation into an evocative exploration of Kantian morality and notions of exclusivity. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I had, when I was asked to do spatial poetics, the idea is that it's an interdisciplinary collaboration, and so I know a lot of musicians, and I was like, oh well, who should I work with, or what kind of medium would I be really interested in working with for a live performance piece like this? And so I've always actually really been interested in the idea of working with animation, but also working with video, and having basically kind of a reverse, instead of having video that's music accompanying video, kind of video accompanying music, or having it be a live performance that involves video, and figuring out the logistics of that. Interesting because his sense of moral philosophy is you are literally a free acting human being essentially. Part of the idea is that it's kind of funny to do something that is about this popular philosophy character in a popular song.
Yes.
But then also I think it's interesting the extent to which, although people might not necessarily know specifically about Kantian moral theory, Kant is incredibly influential in the structure of our society and the structure of our still. And there's a lot of really interesting, very basic, contentious points to make with Kant that are that this song explores in a really, really kind of popular sense. So it's not anything too heady, I'd like to think. And it's only 9 minutes, so it doesn't really get very deep into the subject. And I realize there's some complications to try and explain a large body of a philosopher's work within a 9-minute pop song. So,
and it sounds like very expertly put together, because this is actually Spatial Poetics 12. Mm-hmm. So a lot of history, a lot of dedicated people here. So definitely an event to check out. I'm joined with an animator, Gillian Cole. What can you tell me about Gillian?
She has a YouTube channel that has her grad project from Emily Carr. Her work is all hand-based animation. So initially when I approached her with the project, she warned me that she's like, okay, well, you saw my grad project, which was 3 minutes long, and that took many, many, many months. So something that is going to be, initially it was going to be 10 to 15 minutes long. She's like, that's going to be next to impossible to actually fill with full-on hand animation because the process is very slow. And she managed actually to fill a full 9 minutes with her animation, which is pretty amazing. And it's really neat for someone to be working within an age dominated by digital technology and computers, to be working in something that's so analog. And that's something I really appreciate about what she does, because it is all hand-drawn animation. And it's cool too, because it means it has a certain kind of je ne sais quoi analog feel, or that rough around the edges kind of thing. And I think that's really, really important to still, within a variety of mediums, keep in touch with, whether it's music or visual art.
Thank you. And just before you go too, I wanted to update listeners, especially local music fans, about where you're up to with your projects. Now, SSRIs has changed their name to Spring, and I know you've had your first major show under that name at the Biltmore.
Yeah, that's correct.
And what are the plans there, recording-wise? Is there anything yet in that name available? Or
we are currently working on a full-length album, which should be likely finished recording in the summer and then out in the fall. We do have a video single that should be released very, very, very soon, probably within the next week. As of now, there's been no official releases, but that single release for the music video for a song called Your Chimaranga will be released really, really soon.
Great. We'll definitely be featuring that on this show, and looking forward to future shows too.